Alright, so I'm making this video to help you guys make sure you understand what you need to be able to do for your graphing test. This video is going to be about making a scatter plot in Google Sheets. We'll also make sure it's proficient by going through this checklist. So, right here, I have the scatter plot from our pretest, and we have this title, and we've got an X column and a Y column. And the X column is going to be our independent, and it's going to go on the horizontal axis, and our Y column is going to be our dependent, and it's going to go on the vertical axis. So if I want to make a graph, the first thing I need to do is highlight the titles and the data. From there, I can go to Insert Chart, or I can click on the Insert Chart button on the toolbar. Look for the thing that looks like a graph. Click that. And there we go. So we've got what Google Sheets thinks we want to make. So when I look at this, I don't want to make a line graph. So even though they thought, hey, I think he wants to make a line graph, I want to make a scatter plot. So I'm not really showing a trend over time or anything like that, and I don't want to connect my data points. So to change it from a line graph to a scatter plot, I go where it says chart type. I click that so it drops it down. None of these suggested ones are what I want to do. So I'm going to keep scrolling until I get to scatter. And I'm going to click on scatter. Okay, so first thing, I've got the right type of graph, which is good. Now, another thing I need to look at is my data. And you can see this little dot kind of hiding here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my vertical axis, the scale here, so it's not so hidden. In order to do that, I'm going to go to Customize. And to change the scale, I'm going to go to Vertical Axis, and that'll drop that down. I'm going to change my minimum value. If I look at this, they're going by 0.25. If I drop another 0.25 below that, that should be enough. So I'm going to change my minimum value to 2.75. Now I can see everything, and that looks good. Ooh. All right, so we are all set. I don't want to click that. I'll come back and talk about that a little bit later. Now, I can leave this already extended, but I'm going to click that so it hides it back the way it was. So my data looks good. Another thing with when we have scatter plots, I want to put a trend line in here. So I go to series, and in series, that's where we did our error bar stuff. There's another checkbox there for trend line. If I click trend line, now it puts in a trend line for me. So that's good. That's what I want. So I've got my scales here. They look good. I've got my data. It looks good. I have a trend line. That looks good. One other point before I move on to the titles is this scale here. I was working on this before, and this scale was actually wrong. And I'm going to show you how I fix that. So this is on the horizontal axis, right? And earlier when I was making this graph, all of these numbers, 4, 15, 30, 36, 45, those were the numbers that were down here instead of having a nice evenly spread number line. So it actually looked like this when I was playing with this before. And I almost didn't catch it because I'm just like, oh, Google Sheets does everything right. But then I look closer and I'm like, no, this isn't right. I don't want all of these numbers in here because I want a straight number line. So if Google Sheets ever predicts this and does it wrong, if you go into horizontal axis and uncheck the box that says treat labels as text, now it'll turn that back into a nice number line, which is good. So just double check, make sure they're evenly spread numbers along the axes. Okay, so another thing we got to look at is our titles, or our x-axis and y-axis labels. So we said before, females per unit area should be here. Now I don't need units for that because we just count the number of females. We wouldn't put anything in parentheses here to put a label on those numbers. Same thing with average clutch size. And if you're asking yourself, what the heck is a clutch size? A clutch is the nest. So the clutch size is how many eggs are in the nest. So we're going to leave that the same too. I don't really need to put units like eggs in nest because that's what that means. But I want to change my overall title here. This is the default for Google Sheets is like this column versus that column. But that's not exactly what I want. And I'm going to steal the title that's right here. Effective population density, which is females per unit area, on the number of offspring raised, which is clutch size, among, and this is the third part, the little bit extra that gives the reader a little bit better understanding of what you're talking about, among song sparrows in Eagle County. So I go over to customize, and I want the overall chart title, not the other axis titles. I want the chart title changed. So I go down to the title text, and I'm going to type in what was given. And that looks fantastic. So let's go back and just double check with our checklist to make sure we have everything. I just did the three-part title, so we're all good there. X-axis label, Y-axis label. X-axis label, Y-axis label. Appropriate scales and number lines. And again, these are nice evenly spread, so that's all good. Google Sheets doesn't very often put 0 in the corner and break the number line. They just put the range, the minimum value in the corner. Properly represented data, that's good. I mean, I adjusted the minimum value so we could see all of the data. And the last thing is possibly a key or legend. So um, Google Sheets automatically put a legend on here that says average clutch size. And is this really wanted or needed? Does every dot actually represent the average clutch size? No, the actually represents like a place in Eagle County where they counted up the number of females in the area and then figure out the average clutch size in that area. So I don't want this. Even though it's like a possible requirement, it doesn't make sense for this graph, so I need to get rid of that. And where in the heck do I find that? One thing you can do is just click on it. And when I click on it, it'll take me to where I need to fix it in the customize in the chart editor. If I don't know, and this is why typically we call these keys, but I said possibly a key slash legend because Google Sheets calls it the legend. So I go here, I drop that down, and the position is where I need to go to get rid of it. Right now it's on the right. If I click none, I get rid of it, and now I have a proficient graph with all 6 characteristics. So again, that is how you make a scatter plot on Google Sheets. I hope that was helpful.